Do you consider yourself a true classic car enthusiast? Someone who can appreciate what lies beneath a real muscle car or a rare high-performance gem? If the answer is yes, then this video is for you. Today we're diving into the rarest performance cars of the 1960s. Machines that didn't just define an era, but reshaped it. These weren't just fast cars. They were limited production legends that shattered expectations, broke records on the track, and left a permanent mark on automotive history. Ready to discover these incredible machines? Let's get into it. 1968 to 1970. Oldsmobile 442 W30. This is one of those stories where a brand known for refinement suddenly decided to get very serious about performance. Oldsmobile already had a reputation inside General Motors for solid engineering and strong engines, but the W30 package took that philosophy to a whole new level. This wasn't a cosmetic upgrade or a marketing gimmick. It was built for people who wanted real performance. Under the hood sat the big block 455 V8, tuned for a sharper, more aggressive response. The improved intake system, revised exhaust flow, and performance-oriented calibration made this engine hit hard from the moment it came off idle, delivering massive torque through the mid-range. The result? A car capable of going from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 6 seconds. Numbers that rivaled some of the most famous muscle cars of the era. While the 442 itself wasn't rare, the W30 package absolutely was. In 1968, roughly 697 units were built. In 1969, about 912. And in 1970, around 3,100 cars left the factory, though not all were configured in the most extreme specification. By the standards of mass production in the 1960s, these are very low numbers, especially compared to other muscle cars that sold in the tens of thousands. And because so many W30 cars were driven hard, finding a true, fully documented example today is becoming increasingly difficult. One particularly interesting detail of the W30 is the functional cold air induction setup, with ducting routed through the fender to feed the engine denser air. It wasn't built to look flashy, it was built to work. Today, the Oldsmobile 442 W30 stands as one of the brand's most valuable and desirable models. On the current market, an original matching numbers example with the correct restoration typically falls between $90,000 and $150,000, depending on the year and condition. 1969 to 1970, Pontiac GTO Ram Air 4. By the late 1960s, the GTO name was already legendary, practically synonymous with the term muscle car. But the Ram Air 4 version took that concept to a far more serious and uncompromising level. This wasn't a GTO built to look good on the street or attract casual buyers. It was a configuration created with one clear goal: maximum performance. Under the hood sat the high-compression 400 V8, officially rated at 370 horsepower. Though anyone familiar with this engine knows the real output was noticeably higher. With an aggressive camshaft, high-flow cylinder heads, specific exhaust manifolds, and a fully functional ram air induction system, the car truly came alive at high RPM, something unusual for big engines of the late 60s. Performance-wise, it lived in a different league compared to the standard versions. It could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 6 seconds, and run the quarter mile in the 13-second range with the right driver, numbers that placed it among the fastest cars of its time. But what truly sets it apart in this video is its extreme rarity. In 1969, Pontiac produced about 549 Ram Air A4 GTOs, and in 1970, the number dropped even further to approximately 233 units. For such a popular model line, these production figures are almost insignificant, and they explain why this variant is so heavily sought after by serious collectors today. The Ram Air 4 engine was anything but tame. It had a choppy idle, demanded high revs, and wasn't particularly comfortable for daily use. Naturally, this pushed many buyers toward more civilized options, leaving the Ram Air 4 as an almost exclusive choice for enthusiasts who knew exactly what they were getting into. On today's market, the Pontiac GTO Ram Air 4 ranks among the most valuable GTOs ever built, A documented matching numbers example can easily sell for anywhere between $180,000 and $300,000, and even more at major auctions. 1963 to 1964, Studebaker Avanti R3. Without exaggeration, this is one of the strangest, boldest, and most fascinating cars of the entire decade. When Studebaker introduced the Avanti, the company was already in trouble, fighting to survive against much larger competitors. Even so, they took a massive risk on a project unlike anything else on the market. The Avanti didn't follow trends, didn't mimic European or American designs, and absolutely wasn't meant to be conservative. Yet the R3 version pushed things even further. It was the most extreme interpretation of what the Avanti could be, a technical statement of pride built at a critical moment for the company. Under the hood of the Avanti R3 was a heavily reworked 304 cubic inch V8 with reinforced internals, higher compression, and extensive modifications aimed at producing much greater performance than any standard Avanti. Although official figures were never clearly published, most experts agree that the R3 produced well above the 335 horsepower rating of the R2. The result was a car capable of reaching 60 miles per hour in just over 5 seconds, an astonishing achievement for the early 1960s. But the real reason the Avanti R3 earns its place on this list is its near mythical rarity. We're not talking about hundreds of units, or even dozens. Most historians agree that only around 9 true R3s were ever built, some of which were prototypes or development cars. Each one had small, unique differences, adding even more mystery to their legacy. For years, many enthusiasts doubted the R3's existence altogether, until a few surviving examples resurfaced in private collections and exclusive events. One lesser-known fact is that the Avanti R3 was used to set speed records at Bonneville in a bold attempt to prove that Studebaker still had engineering talent and innovation to offer. It was less a commercial product and more a public statement to the automotive world. Today, finding an authentic Avanti R3 is nearly impossible, and when one appears, there is no such thing as a standard price. Estimates suggest it can easily exceed $400,000 depending on provenance and documentation. And now, I'll throw the question to you, because this car continues to divide experts even today. If you had one in front of you, would you call it a true muscle car, a grand tourer ahead of its time, or simply one of the wildest experiments ever built by an American manufacturer? Let me know in the comments. 1969 to 1970, Ford Mustang Boss 429. The Boss 429 exists for one very specific reason. Ford needed to homologate a new engine for NASCAR competition, and the only way to do that was to install it, at least officially, into a production car. That's how the Boss 429 was born, a Mustang that was, in reality, little more than a legal excuse to put a race engine on the oval tracks. From day one, it was clear this was not a conventional muscle car. It was a technical project built with a singular mission. At its core was a 429 cubic inch V8 with entirely new hemispherical heads, engineered to breathe at high RPM and handle continuous punishment on the racetrack. Ford officially rated it at 375 horsepower, but that number was noticeably conservative. In terms of straight performance, it could reach 60 miles per hour in just a little over 6 seconds, certainly respectable. But its real strength was sustained high-speed power, where other engines began to run out of breath. Within the context of this video, the Boss 429 stands out for its extremely limited production. In 1969, Ford built about 859 units, and in 1970, production dropped to roughly 499. In total, just over 1,300 cars, each one assembled almost by hand by Carcraft, the external contractor responsible for modifying every Mustang to accept the massive big block V8. One particularly interesting detail is that, ironically, the Boss 429 wasn't the quickest Mustang in a straight line. Other models, like the Boss 302 or even certain big block versions, were more competitive on the quarter mile. But none offered the engineering sophistication or the pure racing purpose of the 429. In today's market, an authentic matching numbers Boss 429 with proper documentation easily commands between $300,000 and $500,000, depending on year and condition. 1966 to 1967, Dodge Charger Hemi. When the Charger debuted, it immediately stood apart from everything else on the market. Fast backlines, imposing presence, and a noticeably more aggressive personality than other full-size coupes of the era. But once Dodge offered it with the 426 Hemi, the car transformed from attention-grabbing into a full-fledged performance monster aimed at a very specific type of buyer. Even in those days, the 426 Hemi was a special engine. With 7 liters of displacement and architecture derived directly from racing, it was officially rated at 425 horsepower, though the real output was clearly higher. It could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 6 seconds, and in a straight line, it could challenge nearly any muscle car of its time. Within this video's theme, the Hemi Charger stands out for its extremely low production numbers. In 1966, Dodge built roughly 468 Hemi-equipped units, and in 1967, the number was similar, around 475. For a model that today is one of Dodge's most recognizable icons, these figures are shockingly small. On top of that, many of these cars were driven hard, heavily modified, or outright destroyed in competition, which makes surviving documented examples even rarer. A fascinating detail is that early Hemi Chargers weren't immediately appreciated by the general public. Their size, high price, and demanding driving characteristics meant they weren't easy cars to sell. Some dealerships even struggled to move them off the lot. But as time passed, that combination of unique styling and legendary engine became their greatest asset. Today, a 1966 or 1967 Dodge Charger Hemi with matching numbers and proper documentation can easily fetch between $300,000 and $450,000. 1969 Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. This car wasn't an evolution of the standard Camaro. It was an outright anomaly within the lineup, something that could only exist under the very specific circumstances of the late 1960s. At its core sat the legendary 427 cubic inch ZL1 V8, built entirely from aluminum. Chevrolet officially rated it at 430 horsepower, but that number was laughably conservative. In real-world conditions, the engine easily surpassed 500 horsepower, delivering explosive throttle response and an unusually high rev range for a big block of that era. Thanks to its reduced weight and brutal power, the Camaro ZL1 could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 5 seconds and run the quarter mile in the low 11s. Performance on par with true race cars. What makes the ZL1 a key highlight in this video is its extremely limited production. In 1969, only around 69 units were built, all through the COPO program. Its price was astronomical at the time, far higher than any other high-performance Camaro, which made many dealerships hesitant to order them. Some units even sat unsold for months, something unthinkable today. Over time, many ZL1s were modified or raced heavily, further reducing the number of surviving original examples. A lesser-known curiosity is that the ZL1 was so extreme that it made even Chevrolet executives uncomfortable. It was too fast, too expensive, and too specialized to fit any traditional business strategy. And that's precisely why today it's considered one of the most significant Camaros ever created. In today's market, an authentic 1969 Z-L1 Camaro with matching numbers and proper documentation easily commands between $700,000 and over $1 million, depending on the condition and provenance. And here's the question for you, because this car always sparks debate among true enthusiasts. If the Camaro ZL1 had been produced in larger numbers, do you think it would be remembered today as the definitive muscle car of the 1960s? Or does its legend exist precisely because almost no one could own one? Let me know in the comments. 1968 to 1969 Plymouth Barracuda, Hemi. When most people hear Hemi, they immediately think of the big B-body cars like the Roadrunner or the Charger, but the Barracuda played in a completely different league. Smaller, lighter, and far harder to control, it was a platform that very few buyers dared to pair with Chrysler's most radical engine. And precisely because of that, it's now considered one of the rarest and most special Hemi cars of the entire decade. Under the hood was the same 426 cubic inch Hemi, officially rated at 425 horsepower, though its true output was even higher. In a smaller body with a shorter wheelbase, the engine transformed the car into something almost intimidating. This wasn't a friendly or forgiving muscle car. It could hit 60 miles per hour in roughly 5.5 seconds, and in the quarter mile, it could match or even outperform many larger, better-known models. But that combination of brutal power and compact size demanded respect. Within the context of this video, the Barracuda 426 Hemi stands out for its incredibly low production numbers, especially compared to the Hemi B bodies. In 1968, only about 50 units were built with the 426 Hemi. In 1969, production rose slightly to around 235 units, including both hardtops and convertibles. These figures are tiny, even by rare muscle car standards, and they explain why seeing a true Hemi Cuda today is an event, something unusual even at major classic car gatherings. One interesting detail is that many dealerships actively discourage buyers from choosing this configuration. The high price, heavy fuel consumption, demanding engine behavior, and difficult in actually using all that power pushed most customers toward more balanced versions. In today's market, the Plymouth Barracuda 426 Hemi is one of the most prized Mopar machines ever built. An authentic matching numbers example with proper documentation easily falls between $600,000 and $900,000, and in some cases can exceed that. 1968 and 1969 AMCAM X390 Go package. This car became a very serious alternative to the traditional muscle machines from Ford, Chevrolet, and Mopar, even if many people at the time didn't take it entirely seriously. At the heart of the AMX Go package was a 390 cubic inch V8 officially rated at 315 horsepower, a number that may sound modest today, but in practice was extremely well utilized. The car was compact, relatively light, and had a more favorable weight distribution than many larger competitors. That translated into genuinely competitive, real-world performance. The AMX could hit 60 miles per hour in roughly 6 seconds and run the quarter mile in the mid-14-second range, putting it right alongside much more famous muscle cars. In 1968, approximately 6,725 AMX models were built with the 390 engine, and 1969 saw a similar number, though not all included the complete Go package. For a high-performance car of the late 1960s, these are relatively low production figures, especially when compared to the hundreds of thousands of Mustangs and Camaros sold in the same years. And because AMC lacked the dealer network and media presence of its larger rivals, many AMXS slipped under the radar even when they were brand new. Today, the AMC AMX 390 Go package is highly appreciated by enthusiasts looking for something different. It's not the most famous muscle car, but it might be one of the most interesting. In the current market, an authentic, well-preserved example typically ranges between $70,000 and $120,000, depending on originality and condition. 1964. Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt. This is, without exaggeration, one of the most extreme cars ever to leave an American factory with a license plate. Unlike many high-performance models of the 1960s, the Thunderbolt wasn't created as a warmed-up version of a street car. It was engineered directly as a competition tool. Ford built it with one purpose in mind: dominate drag racing and homologate its new engine for NHRA stock class competition. Everything about this car revolves around that mission, and it shows in every detail. Under the hood of the Fairlane Thunderbolt was the brutal 427 cubic inch FE series Faveo 8, tuned specifically for drag racing, officially rated around 425 horsepower. Its actual output was undeniably higher. The entire car was engineered to launch as quickly as possible in a straight line, with no concern for comfort, refinement, or daily usability. To achieve this, Ford removed weight aggressively. Hood, bumpers, and other components were made of fiberglass, the interior was stripped down, and even the battery was relocated for better weight distribution. Thanks to this no-nonsense philosophy, the Thunderbolt could cover the quarter mile in just over 11 seconds, a staggering achievement in 1964, placing it firmly in race car territory. The Thunderbolt's rarity is absolutely real. In 1964, roughly 100 units were produced, divided between hardtop and post-sedan versions. Each one was assembled with near handcrafted attention because Ford knew these weren't retail products. They were homologation specials. Many were delivered straight to race teams or private drag racers and never experienced normal street use. As a result, finding an authentic Thunderbolt today, still in original configuration, is extraordinarily rare. A lesser-known curiosity is that the Fairlane Thunderbolt was so extreme that it was uncomfortable even by 1960s standards. It lacked basic amenities, and its handling outside of straight-line racing made it clear the car had one, and only one, purpose: win drag races. Even so, its impact was immediate. It dominated the drag strip and forced rival manufacturers to respond with equally radical projects. Today, the Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt is regarded as one of the most important and respected American muscle cars of the 1960s. An authentic, well-documented example in today's market typically brings between $600,000 and $900,000 and can exceed that range at major auctions. 1963 Chevrolet Impala Z11. This is one of those cars that shouldn't exist. And that's exactly why it's so important in the history of American high performance. In the early 1960s, Chevrolet was determined to dominate the drag racing scene, and simply upgrading existing models wasn't enough. They needed something radical, almost secretive. That's how the Z11 package was born, an extreme configuration created solely for homologation and competition, transforming the otherwise calm and dignified Impala into a true quarter-mile missile. At the heart of the Z11 was a very special version of the 427 cubic inch V8, engineered specifically for racing. Chevrolet used aluminum body panels for the hood, front fenders, and other key components to reduce weight, something nearly unheard of in a production-based car at the time. Officially, output was rated at around 430 horsepower, but like many projects of this type, the real number was higher. On the strip, the Impala Z11 could run the quarter mile in the low 11-second range, an astonishing performance for 1963 and clearly aimed at serious competition. And this wasn't a limited edition in the modern sense. It was practically symbolic production. Chevrolet built an estimated 57 units of the Impala Z11, all of them intended for race teams and professional drivers. These cars were not meant for dealership showrooms or everyday customers. In fact, many were never driven legally on the street and spent their entire lives on drag racing tracks. That extreme use is precisely why so few original examples survive today. A little-known detail is that the Z11 used so many purpose-built components that many parts shared no references with other Chevrolet models. Even in its era, maintaining one required specialized knowledge, and today, without access to original parts, it is nearly impossible. This was a machine built for one purpose, with zero compromises, perfectly representing the spirit of 1960s homologation specials. In today's collector market, the Chevrolet Impala Z11 is one of the most coveted pieces in American automotive history. When a genuine, properly documented example comes up for sale, its value easily falls between $700,000 and well over $1 million, depending on originality and condition. And with this, we wrap up our list of some of the rarest high-performance cars of the 1960s, machines that were never meant to please everyone, but to win, to homologate, and to leave their mark. Now, I want to hear from you, and yes, your answer really matters here. If you had to choose just one of the cars we looked at today for your garage, not the most expensive, not the most famous, but the one you respect the most as an enthusiast, which one would it be, and why? Reading your comments is invaluable because the insights and stories you share always enrich the channel. And if you're eager to keep exploring the contrasts of this golden era, I highly recommend checking out our latest video on the fastest luxury coupes of the 1960s. It's the perfect complement to understand how refinement and mechanical brutality coexisted under the same roof during this incredible decade. See you in that video.